I was left to my own devices.
With the introduction of new online technology, changes in instructional design have also occurred. The traditional and non-traditional approaches described by Brown and Green in the text, essentials of instructional design, still play a part, but as time passes, we will begin to see more modern systems put into place. The traditional classroom incorporated the teacher-student following a pedagogical system and will move more towards an androgynous one. The future holds many changes because technology opens many doors for an instructor to teach. New designs, internet, web, social, all types of technology for the instructor to change. The hard part, how to get the teachers there. Once you've got them there and the educational system, then the rest is relatively easy. Right now, a person walks into a classroom with the expectation of rows containing desks to appear in front of you. At least that's what people expect, but in the future, the classroom is going to become individual pods and round tables scattered about a room that have different themes. Each theme, history, math, science, will have a different setting around that little area. The other thing will be the internet. The internet will play a large part in instructional design and in the classroom. The new instruction begins today and expands into the future. This new learning opens the eyes of each student because he or she becomes more involved as opposed to instructed. The current system is instructor standing in the front, student doing what they're told, following the standard system. The teacher remains in the process, the instructor remains there, but I predict that each classroom and distant learning becomes a more open environment that incorporates technology into that new style. As stated in a text by Segru, research acknowledges that schools have not always been instruments of liberation or equality, and that professional educators have sometimes stood in the way of positive developments. The teaching mechanism blocks the ability to change, so change is hard. That alone can slow the moving forward process to a crawl. If a stakeholder fails to examine the change and how that can occur, then change isn't really possible. So the influences that are directly involved are those instructors and the structure of that instructional institution itself. The rest is relatively simple. Whatever the trend is, follow that trend. But we've got to get their buy-in. So in this segment, we're talking about the involved parties in change. Who's involved in this change? Well, as we've learned, it's got to come from the instructors and the stakeholders. The importance of any program relies on the facts that he or she buys into that change and then designs a curriculum to establish and incorporate those new styles. If the system fails to understand that importance, then the program can't evolve. So we've got to get the instructors, the institution involved in that change, because they're the ones that will allow that process to move forward. The new design requires a program that encompasses numerous methods. With both the online and cluster groups, you've got to write a curriculum that can adapt to each different style. In the classroom with a cluster group, let's say, you've got the science over here, the math over here, more in a grade school setting, but you'd have to break out a curriculum in that arena, and the same goes for an online education. Individual classes would have individual modules that are designed on the web, each following the same basic pattern, but evolving as the systems evolved. As stated by Michael Fullen in an article, The Future of Educational Change, the way to change systems is to foster the development of practitioners who are system thinkers in action, meaning they can think as the systems change, they can change with them, they can adapt, they can learn how to advance with that technology. The stakeholders must evolve to adapt to those new changes. And once again, this requires, as we stated before, a full buy-in from the instructors and the institutions themselves. In summary, the overall problem as described by each article and what we've investigated appears to be the educators and the stakeholders. Failing to change and adapt to new systems and methods of instructions means the student's training system or learning system becomes obsolete in that institution. The traditional and non-traditional approaches must change to adapt to society. And so when the modern classroom begins to take over and the internet plays a large portion to those changes, we have to change with it. Failing to change with it, and the institution is behind the curve. That instructor opens the door to the future. So he or she must press for advancement in the instructional design. You have to push the institution. You have to question above you and push to get those changes put into place. Failing to put those changes in place means that that school doesn't evolve. And in the future, we've got to learn to adapt to the new systems and follow those systems to create a better environment, a better learning environment for the student.
I was left to my